Lori here. I'm back. So this is going to be a little bit more of a chatty video. I'm kind of going to wrap up my spring reading life, sort of give you just some updates. I'll probably talk about my list books that I tackled, just what happened in general, and my favorite books, my least favorite books, and we'll just have a little bit of a chit chat. So this spring was a little bit of a weird couple of months. We had just switched into going fully in person. All my students were fully in person. Over spring break, if you've been following my reading blogs for the past couple of months, my room flooded. So what that meant is that I had to move out of my bedroom. I had to move all my stuff out of my bedroom. So I was very much sort of displaced till about early June, I would say. I think I moved back into my room maybe the middle of May, but it took a lot of time to get furniture. I had to get all new furniture. I had to get all new bookcases. So it was just a process. It was a really long, stressful thing just to sort of get everything to go. And now I'm so happy with how my room turned out. But that 2-month, 3-month period was just super stressful. And because at that point I had just sort of set up all my lists and all my books and everything sort of got thrown into boxes, I was really bad at my list books because I couldn't find them or I didn't know what happened to them. So it just wasn't as strong as I wanted it to be. So I'm going to make it a mission to sort of tackle the rest of my list books in the summer when I know I have a little bit more time to sort of play around with them. But let's get into the top 10 books that I read in the spring. A lot of them are middle grade. I did do a big middle grade challenge in the month of May where I read mostly all middle grade books, but let's get into it. Chat about is Last Fallen Star by Gracie Kim. The E-arc of this book. I got this from Disney Publishing. This is one of the most recent Rick Riordan Presents novels, and this one has to do with Korean witches, which just was a delight. I loved her writing style. I loved the adventure. I loved the world building. I had been rereading the Avatar: The Last Airbender comics, and this world really reminded me of Avatar: The Last Airbender. But I love the main character. I love the focus not only just on friendship, but also on unique family structures, but also on sisterhood. And I really, really like this book. Definitely am excited for book 2. But just in general, I think I found a new favorite author that I'm definitely going to be keeping an eye on because this book was just a pure delight. Definitely fixed my my witchy fantasies because I love witch novels. I struggled actually reading them, but I collect them. So this one's a book that I actually read, really liked, and that is why I made this list. I'm going to chat about is Aramusha in the City of Gold by Ronnie Choshki. The Pandava series, and I really like this book. I think it's definitely my favorite in that whole series. This series definitely comes probably the closest to the structure of the Rick Riordan Presents series, but I just love seeing these characters grow. I read a majority of these books this year. I read book 2, 3, and 4 pretty close together, but this is definitely my favorite book in that series, and I'm so upset that I have to wait for for the last book in the series, but I thought it did a lot of fun things, went in a sort of an unexpected direction, but the friendship and, again, found family elements in this story was top notch, and the mythology was also really, really fun to read about as well. The grade book that made this list is The Amari and the Knight Brothers by B.B. Elston. It was a delight. It was really, really fun. It focused on brother and sister relationships. Sort of reminded me a little bit of the Morgan Crow series because there's a school element to it, but there's also a mystery element. There was a plot twist at the end that I did not see coming. It was great. Definitely am excited for book 2, but it dealt with a lot more than just fantastical elements. There was a really strong element about racism and prejudice, and just, characters that aren't just don't fit in. They had a lot of stuff like that, but also found family and friendship groups. It was a delight. I keep using that word in this reading vlog, but it was a very impactful story, but one that had enough whimsy that just carried you through, and you don't, it was really, really captivating to me. But I really, really enjoyed it, and it gave me Percy Jackson vibes as well, which I love. and eerie, creepy mystery stuff that always keeps kids wanting to read. So I really enjoyed it, and I also really enjoyed B.B. Elston's writing style as well. Definitely almost as much as I enjoyed the Gracie Kim story, but very, very fun, engaging read that I really enjoyed during this couple of months. The book that I'm going to chat about is Inside Out and Back Again, which I read for that middle grade reading challenge, but was definitely another standout for me. In verse, and I don't think I've ever read a book in verse before, but I really enjoyed it. But you basically follow this young girl who lived in Saigon, and war came to her country, and she was basically sent to live, I think it was Alabama. It was either Alabama or Georgia. And it just was a really impactful read, seeing like how her world changed on a dime, and what her immigration role was like, and how that really affected her. And the whole thing is told in verse, so you're really in her head. It also deals with grief, anxiety. Learning in a new country is never easy, but it was a read that definitely like stuck with me for a while, and I still think about these characters. And it also, again, there's been a big talk in the booktube and book community world, like, why are we reading diversely? And this book was one of those books that I really like said, this is why I do that, because I would never have had experiences like that. And it not only put me in her position, like as a character, but also made me think about future students I might teach that are going to be immigrants from different countries, and what their world might be like, and how I can be a better educator for them. So that's why I read diversely. And I don't, but just this story was very, very impactful to me, and that's why it's on this list. But definitely made me take a step back when I was reading the character, because I was like, it was a very, very important read, at least a very, very important read for me. And I definitely recommend you check it out, because it was really emotional, but also really engaging. I'm back in a different t-shirt because I stopped filming last night to do some other things, and I just got a little bit distracted. But the next book we're going to talk about is actually an audiobook, and the only adult book on the list, and that is On the Way to the Wedding by Julia Quinn. Official book in the Bridgerton series. I've really enjoyed the Bridgerton series, and I went in sort of expecting that I was going to like this book, but I definitely did not expect to love it as much as I did. I really loved the main character of Lucy. I also loved Gregory. This book had a lot more Bridgerton family drama than I was necessarily expecting. It had some hijinks and mystery and drama at the very, very end that was super fast paced. I love the epilogue of the story a lot. Normally her epilogues are pretty fun, like her second epilogues, but this one was really enjoyable and very, very captivating. And I really, really liked it. I would definitely want to read more by Julia Quinn in the future, and read some more historical fiction books that are focused on big sized families. But I really like this one, and that is why I made this list. Books, the young adult books that I really did enjoy this season. The first one is Rule of Wolves by Leigh Bardugo. Of Scars and Rule of Wolves during this time frame, and I really loved it. I think that this is definitely my favorite duology that Leigh has ever written. I really like the focus on the new characters, but also some old characters. I thought it was great. I think it really captured and was able to kind of wrap up the whole Grishaverse in a really, really unique way, and also sort of set it up for success in the future. All I could say is, if we don't get another Crows book, I'm going to be so sad. But I really loved it, and I think that this is the duology that I will prefer over her other ones. I still have to make it a mission to go reread the Six of Crows duology, just because I don't think I gave it the time and attention that it deserved. But very, very strong, and that's why I've made this list. To chat about is Morgan Matson's newest release. It's been so long since we had a new Morgan Matson book, and this book really just put a smile on my face, and that is Take Me Home Tonight. Here's a pretty photo. Theater, and you follow these two best friends. They are theater kids, and their weekend winds up going a little bit differently when stuff does not go the way that they planned. So they wind up running away to the city, but when they run away to the city hoping to have the best night ever, it turns into a disaster from the start, where they have to start questioning some things about their relationships, their friendships, and their lives, which is really insane and really, really intense. But also there was like a mystery subplot that I loved, and I don't think Morgan Matson has ever really done something like that before, and I really enjoyed that. But as a theater kid, I really appreciated the focus on the theater lifestyles. And as someone that was in theater life and does do theater now because I teach theater, I just really enjoyed it. And I love the focus on friendship. I love how New York became like a character. Really, really great. Definitely a new favorite from her. And I really hope I don't have to wait 3 years for a new Morgan Matson book because I really, really like this one. And I'm definitely due for a reread for her previous books that she has put out. A bit of a tease because it isn't actually out yet, but I did read it very, very early, and that is Never Saw You Coming by Erin Hahn. It comes out in September. This is the companion book to More Than Maybe, and guys, I adored it. Meg, who's Veda's best friend in the first book, and in the first couple of chapters, her world does sort of turn on its head when a family secret is revealed, and she sort of sends herself on an adventure to sort of uncover that family secret. And when she goes to kind of meet her, a part of the family she's never really met before, it sort of comes out a lot of these things, and she meets a boy named Micah, and I just devoured this read. I thought it was great. It focuses a lot on the church culture and a church way of life, and I never really read that before, so I really appreciated that, as that's not my circle, that's not a lifestyle I live, but I really appreciated Erin Hahn writing that and focusing on the double standards for male and females in that culture. It had elements that reminded me of The Lying Woods by Ashley Elston. It also had a couple of other plot points that reminded me of more one of the contemporary novels by Bridget Kimmerer, but it had a lot of elements that sort of tied it all together. And I love the main characters. I love the tiebacks. We got to see Veda and Luke again. You should definitely check this book when it comes out in September because it definitely was one of my favorites of the spring by far. What stood out to me was A Blade of Secrets by Trisha Levasseur. This is Trisha Levasseur's newest read. I will preface it by saying it is a part of a duology, so don't go in thinking it's a standalone because it's not. But this follows Ziva, a blacksmith with a lot of social anxiety, but also really, really good at making weapons that are magical. But when her weapon is empowered with the spells, to anything she cuts, she can sort of read that person's mind, or the weapon can. She kind of, her eyes are open to the true intentions behind this weapon she created, and she goes on the run with a ragtag group of heroes, heroes in quotation marks, and it was just really fast-paced and adventurous. I also love the anxiety representation. You don't ever really see that in fantasy novels. You see it a lot in contemporary novels, but again, I'm all about, focusing more on characters and growth, and I really like that. It also focuses a lot on sisterhood. It was a really, really delightful read, and I definitely devoured it, and I definitely cannot wait for the sequel to come out in next couple of years, hopefully next year. And the last book I'm going to chat about in this section of the video is my final read that definitely caught me off guard, that I really enjoyed this season, was Sweet Bitter Magic by Adrienne Tooley. To like this book. I definitely didn't expect it to love it as much as I did, but basically you follow these two characters as their home is basically encountered by a plague. You follow a witch and a source. Or source is someone that can sort of like has magic but can't use it, but people can use it on her. Like they can use it as like a resource, but when her dad is deathly sick from this plague, she goes to this witch and they make sort of a deal that they will work together to bring down the black magic that is sort of coursing through this land. And it was great. It reminded me so much of Buffy and Willow. And I've so been craving books like that focus on witchcraft and different sides of witchcraft, and I really, really enjoyed it. This is definitely a standalone as far as I know. So if you're looking for a wrapped up story, I would definitely pick this one up. It has good LGBTQ representation. It was very, very fast paced, very, very focuses on female characters and small cast of characters as well. I don't always love small cast of characters, but this book was definitely one of my favorites, and I'm really excited to see what this author does in the future. About the books that I did not love, that does not mean these books were horrible. I actually did DNF a couple of books, and I'll talk about that a little bit briefly. I did wind up DNFing White Fox by Sarah Faring. I just couldn't get into it. I blame one of the other books on this list because that book also had a really unlikable character, and I wound up reading that one for a blog tour. But this one just didn't capture me, and I really struggled. So I wound up DNFing that, and I also wound up DNFing the hotel in between during my middle grade reading challenge because, again, it just wasn't capturing me, and I was really trying to read so many middle grade books that month, and I just felt like it was not. So those two were books that I wound up DNFing. I've been trying to keep tracks of my DNFs, but I don't really DNF a lot. But the first book that I really struggled a little bit with was A Chorus Rises by Bethany C. Morrow. A little bit with Song Below Water. I struggled a little bit with the writing style. And the thing about this book is I love the plot. I love the world. I love the urban inspired siren myth. I think that's really cool. And then the other creatures that you get in this world, I think it's great. I really struggled with the main character in this read. And I think that that was sort of the point for Naima. Like, I think you weren't supposed to like her. And I think the first half of the book, I just was like, I just did not like her at all. I liked all the side characters, and I just really struggled with her as a main character. That's just a me thing. I struggle with unlikable main characters. I don't not know why. I struggle. It's been a constant issue for me. So I just was reading this and I really struggled. I picked up the audiobook and I definitely liked the second half of this book a lot more, but I struggled with her as a main character pretty hard. So that was a little bit of a struggle read for me. I did like the second half of the story a lot more. If they do write more stories, I'm definitely going to pick them up. I like seeing some of the previous characters from Song Below Water because I definitely like those characters a lot. The next book I struggled a little bit with was Unbirthday by Liz Brashwell. Sometimes are a little bit of a mixed bag. I've had some Twisted Tales that I have adored, and I have had some that I really haven't liked. This one I struggled a little bit, and it's an Alice in Wonderland retelling. I just couldn't connect to it. I felt like, I mean, again, it's been a bit since I've read Alice in Wonderland or seen Alice in Wonderland or experienced Alice in Wonderland. Maybe just because I'm not that familiar with the story, but it just bored me. It really wasn't as captivating as I wanted. It wasn't as, you know, captivating or engaging as I wanted it to be. I liked it. I didn't love it. I got it for a review copy from Disney, and it just wasn't my favorite. I do have some, I still really do want to read all the other titles I haven't read, like the Frozen one and the Peter Pan one, but this one just did not wow me. The next book I'm going to chat about in this mini section is Not Our Summer by Cassie Bosby. Book because I like the cousin relationship. You basically follow these two characters and they're sort of dealing with the death of their grandfather, which they both never knew, and their moms have been in this like age-old war, so they haven't talked in years. But their grandfather, who's an unexpected, has like a lot of money, decides the only way they can get this money is if they work together and like complete these scavenger hunt, I guess you could say, together. And the one thing I loved about this book was the cousin dynamic. I thought that was great. I like that they were forced to work together, like that you sort of saw them break down their barriers. It's like that you got both two very, very different point of views. I like that it was a cool setting. All the elements were super cool. I struggled with the romance in this book, and I struggled a little bit with like just the representation of teenage life. I just struggled a little with it. I thought it glorified teen smoking and stuff like that a little bit too much for my liking. But I also just wasn't connected to any of the romantic subplots. I really liked the cousin elements, but the other parts of the book just didn't wow me. I still will definitely read her other books in the future. I liked it. It wasn't like a new favorite. It wasn't something I hated, but I just struggled a little bit with those plot elements, and that's why it is on this part of my list. And then the next book I'm going to chat about is Sky Hunter by Mary Lou. This book, I just didn't love it. I think I struggled a little bit with the pacing, and it wasn't as captivating as I wanted it to be. It had some weird pacing elements and very, very slow. I like the main characters, they just weren't my favorite, and it was honestly a slog to get through. I definitely will consider checking out the sequel. I'll probably get the audiobook to just see if it could increase the pace a little bit. I liked it. I didn't love it. Definitely not like the Warcross duology that I read previously by this author, but I enjoyed it. It just wasn't my favorite, and that's why it's on this list. And the last book we're going to chat about in this mini section is World Between Blinks by Amy Kaufman and Ryan Grad. Features cousin, and it's basically a time travel novel. I like the second half of this book a lot better, but it just didn't wow me. I think the world building needed to be tightened up a little bit. It was a fun read. It just wasn't, the world building didn't surprise me. I think the second half of the story was really, really strong, but I just wanted a little bit more from it. So I'll definitely check out book 2. It just wasn't a new favorite, but I did like the use of time travel, because that's sometimes a hard element to write, and I definitely could see that Amy Kaufman and Brian Grant tried really hard. It just wasn't my favorite book that they've written. So the next thing we're going to talk about is my list books. I will admit I failed at this a little bit, but we'll go over the list books that I did finish and what I hope to accomplish in the summer months. As the list category I made was NetGalley arcs that I wanted to finish. I actually did pretty good with this section. I did finish reading Not Our Summer, which I wound up giving 3 stars to. I did wind up finishing Namesake by Adrienne Young, which I gave 4.5 stars to. Gilded Ones by Nina Forna, I think I gave 4 stars to. Super Fake Love Song by David Yoon, I gave 4 stars. And White Fox by Sarah Faring, I did wind up DNFing. So I was able to finish all my NetGalley reads in that one. My top reads of the year, I was able to finish most of them. Actually, all of them. Lost It and Never Would by Aiden Thomas I finished, and I gave 5 stars to. What's Not to Love by Emily Weberly and Osman Sigmund Broca, I gave 4.5 stars to. Really enjoyed that one. World Between Blinks, we just chatted about, I gave 3 stars to. Blade of Secrets, I gave 4.75 stars. And We Can't Keep Meeting Like This, I also gave 4 stars for review. And then the sequels is where it gets a little bit hazy. I did finish reading Bridge of Souls by Victoria Schwab. That I think is the concluding novel in that mini-series set in New Orleans. I like that one a lot. I didn't get around to reading Bone Crier's Dawn. I'm going to have to push that and put that into my next list, which I did do. Firekeeper by J.C. Cervantes, I did wind up finishing. I like that. Gave that one 4 stars. And then I didn't wind up reading Soul of Stars or Tale of Magic. And my backlist title, I didn't wind up reading a lot of them. I didn't read Love and Olives. I didn't read Rebel Rose. I did read Cuban's Girl Guide to Tea and Tomorrow. I didn't read Other Side of the Sky. And I didn't read Forge of Stars. And I didn't read Blood and Honey. So the backlist titles, I think those were the majority of the books that I couldn't find for a lot of this season. So that's why they're not on this list. And then I'm going to kind of go over my summer TBR lists as well. For NetGalley, I want to read Cousins by Catherine McManus, Sources Say, which is another arc I got a while ago, The Companion, Kissing Lessons, and then The Troubled Girls, I think is the title of that one, and then The Extraordinaries by T.J. Kuhn. My top reads year, I want to read Some Girls Do, As If on Cue, They Will Never Catch Us, The Queen Will Betray You, Only Mostly Devastated, is another one. And then sequels, Soul of Stars, Bone Crier Magic, and Tale of Magic. Those are the ones that were left over from my spring TBR that I never wound up tackling. And then backflick titles is Love and Olives, Rebel Rose, Other Side of the Sky, Forged, Blood and Honey, Broken Reb, Cinderella is Dead, and The Invisible Life. I also do have a whole page of my summer TBR, which some of these books got pulled from like my spring TBR. I was really, really bad at my spring TBR. I'll be very, very honest. It was not as successful as I wanted to be. So there is an additional 16 books that is on this list that I'm going to try to get my way into. But that is my progress for all of those. That's my progress for all of my list books I make. So when you guys see my TBR, those are the books that I'm pulling from, in addition to the summer TBR and spring TBR, which I did not touch due to my room flooding. And to what I have been loving, I will say, in addition to my room flooding, we lost internet for like 2 to 3 weeks at my house, which was dramatic. Like, it just was really, really frustrating. So I felt like all the stuff I've watched, I was able to watch it, but it just was like really, really slow going and actually getting to watch stuff. So that's why it was like a little bit less stuff than I normally watch. I also had like 1,000 YouTube videos to watch because my YouTube queue just getting bigger and bigger and bigger, especially because I lost internet for so long. I don't know if I talked about this in my last video, but I did wind up finishing The Irregulars, which actually wound up getting canceled, which I really liked. It's kind of like a Sherlock Holmes inspired story. I really liked all the characters. It was a great, I don't know if I mentioned that in my final wrap up that I did previously, but I really like that story, and will definitely be keeping an eye out for those actors in future projects because I really, really liked it. And then the thing that took the world by storm was Shadow and Bone. I really like that story a lot. I always am a fan of the underdog romance, like the blast from the past romance. So I've always had a soft spot for Mal and Alina. That show gave them their due, and I think made everyone else really enjoy them so much more. It also was a really, really cool experience watching that show, but also like reading my my King of Scars series during the time that happened. So I was really pleased with that. I liked how they combined the Shadow and Bone storyline with also the Six of Crows storyline. Thought that was ingenious. I thought the casting was really, really great. It was a delight. It was a super engaging TV show. So happy we're getting a season 2. Netflix, good decision. Now, if you could only tell me if you were going to renew Julie and the Phantoms, I would be equally excited. But yeah, overall, that was a really, really fun show that I really liked, and really happy that it got a second season. Fate, the Wind Saga, which was also a Netflix series. It was super short. I think it was only like 6 episodes. I love that story so much. Again, I've been craving some Buffy stuff in my life. That really fit the bill. It's fairies, dark fairies, really fun, really engaging, both high school drama, but also mixed with some fairy tale and supernatural elements, which I thought was great. We're definitely getting a second season, which will be a little bit longer than the first season, but I really, really enjoyed that series, and it was quite fun. It makes me want to go back and rewatch the cartoon or read the cartoon, the books that inspired it, but I definitely really enjoyed it. I was not expecting to like it as much as I did, but super enjoyable. And the next one we are going to chat about is Sulphur Springs, The Secrets of Sulphur Springs. It's a Disney Plus show, and it basically follows these 2 kids as they unexpectedly try and time travel back in time to uncover what happened to this young girl that went missing that's connected to their parents. It was great. I watched it in like a weekend, and it was just so fun. It reminded me a lot of like good Disney Channel TV shows, like really, really fun ones, and I really, really enjoyed it. I know we're getting a second season. Really enjoyed the first season, and it was just fun. It was just really, really engaging and very, very fun. Definitely would recommend it if you have like younger kids, but I really liked it, and I'm almost going to be 34. I also finally watched The Queen's Gambit, which everyone has talked about during COVID and quarantine. They like loved it. I really liked it as well. It also had I also like found some Harry Potter actors in there, but it was just fun. It was a really interesting historical fiction piece focusing on how women are treated in society. Definitely was a little bit darker than I thought it was going to be, but I learned how much I love that actress. She's great. I also got to see the guy that used to play Dudley in the Harry Potter series, but it was really, really fun. I was really, really glad that I picked it up. Definitely darker than I had originally thought it was going to be, but such a fun watch, and I will definitely watch more with that actor in it in the future. And I also finished watching Ghostwriter Part 3. This is a Apple TV show, and it's just loosely inspired by the Ghostwriter series of my childhood, but I finally got around to watching the end of it, and it was, again, super fun. It was very, very, like, focuses a lot on literature and use stories to kind of uncover mysteries, which is very different than the original Ghostwriter, but I really liked it. And I'm curious if we're going to get more, just because I really like the younger actors in that piece. But yeah, those are a majority of the TV shows that I finished watching. I still am in the middle of quite a few of them, but we will get to that next. Of the shows that I finished watching, like, seasonally, I finished watching Mighty Ducks, which is called Game Chambers on Disney Plus. I like that show so much. I was a big, huge Mighty Ducks fan when I was younger, just because I love Joshua Jackson and he was the lead in those movies. This one follows a young boy as he sort of navigates the newest Mighty Ducks situation, and the show has a little bit of a twist on it. It stars Laura Graham from Gilmore Girls and the original Gordon Bombay. We also got to see some of the actors from the original movie series, which was a kick to me because I really, really enjoyed those movies quite a bit. But it was fun. I like that kid actors in that as well. Same thing with Sulphur Springs. I think Disney finds some really, really good kid actors, and it was just really, really enjoyable. And I'm hopeful that show gets a second season as well. I think I talked about this in one of my earlier videos because I finished this so long ago. But I also did finish watching Call Me Kat, which is a season that stars Mayim Bialik and Leslie Jordan, and I just really it was just a fun show. It just made me laugh. I used to watch it on Thursday nights, and it just was amusing, and I hopefully am excited to see season 2 when it comes out. And then I also finished watching with the rest of the world Falcon and the Winter Soldier. I really like that show quite a bit. I still think I like WandaVision a little bit more, but I definitely love Anthony Mackie and Sebastian Stan. Their storyline was really, really great, and I am excited to see where they go next in the Marvelverse. But yeah, those were the shows that I completed. And now the shows that I'm in the middle of that I have not finished watching. Magicians is a show that has been recommended to me so much, so I want to finish that this summer. I also started watching Quince with Adrian from Umbrella Academy when he's a little kid. It's on Netflix and it's just super delightful. I really, really like that show quite a bit, and it's just a nice mind-numbing show a little bit of the time. And then I also I'm also in the middle of watching all of my DC shows that I have not completed yet. But the 2 shows that I'm most up to date on in that category of like network TV that I watch pretty religiously is I caught up and watched the entire 11 episodes of Superman, which I think is probably becoming one of my favorite shows, close second only to The Flash. But I just love how it focuses so much on Lois and Superman and also their kids. I think it's a really well-rounded show, and I'm just really intrigued. I'm almost so tempted to go back and rewatch the original Smallville. That might be a project that happens because I've never actually seen that show. I've seen bits and pieces of it. But I'm just really liking the take of that, and I didn't think I would like it that much. And I also am the closest to being caught up on The Flash. I have a couple more episodes left, and Cisco's leaving this season, which is sad because I love Cisco. He's definitely one of my favorite characters. But I also have to catch up on a bunch of other shows on the CW and on Hulu, which I just neglected because I lacked TV for a good couple of weeks. Now let's get into the movies that I have watched. I'm in the middle of watching Loki. I watched the first 2 episodes. I like it. I just need to focus on that show a little bit. It's very, very cerebral, a lot of information. I do like Tom Hiddleston, though. I think he's great. And I love Owen Wilson, so I just have to really focus on that show a little bit. But other than that, it's so much fun. And I like that they're really taking a lot of risks with these smaller shows and doing some new fun things. And then the 2 movies that I watched, again, I'm getting better at watching movies, and I'll talk about this a little bit in my other activities I've been doing, but I watched Wish Dragon on Netflix, which is just so cute. It just was really, really fun. And it had like major Aladdin vibes to me, but I found it to be quite charming and quite adorable. And I also watched Luca like 6 times because I watched it by myself, and then my kids at school wanted to watch it during the last week of school, so I watched that like the first 30 minutes of the movie like 12 different times. So I feel like I know the first 30 minutes of that movie super well because I've seen it at least 6 different times. And I also, one of my classes chose to rewatch Raya and the Last Dragon, so I watched that again through one of my classes that I have 6 times a week. And we watched a few prop culture episodes on Disney Plus, which just sort of follows this guy named Dan as he kind of tries to track down props from movies, mostly big movies. We watched the Nightmare Before Christmas episode. We watched the Honey, We Shrunk the Kids episode. We watched the Muppets one. I think we watched one more. Can't remember which one they wanted to watch, but those were the shows I showed the kids for the last week because they wanted to be done with school, and that was the only thing that kept them engaged. But they really liked the movie Luca. So if you have some middle school kids, I would definitely recommend Luca. And here's the fun part. Here are some of the things that I've just been loving in general that aren't movies or TV shows that definitely have captured me. My new room has really changed my reading life because I have never in my life been able to see all the books that I possess and own, and it's been such a dream just to, when I'm done with a book, look around my bedroom and say, oh, I can read all of these books because I could see them. Normally my books were in a garage or in a shed and they were in boxes and I didn't know my book collection. Now I know my book collection. I also took about a day out of my life and I scanned all my book collection into Libby, so I have it, and when I like finally start unhauling books, I'm just going to take them off there so I know an accurate collection of my books that I own, which I think is good. I'm probably going to do that this weekend. I'm going to do like my update stuff. But just having a new room and just like painting and everything, as dramatic as it was because my room flooded, I'm happy that I did get a new bedroom because I really like the turnout of it. that was one thing that took a lot of time over the past 2 months, but once it was done, I was pleasantly pleased with my new setup. And I also unhauled a lot. I got rid of a lot of books. I did like a big video about that, but that was also really enjoyable, just like sort of paring down my collection, especially because right now there are no conventions. I want to really focus on the books that I have, so eventually when conventions do occur again, I can just keep adding to my collection, but have a smaller TBR is always the goal. We'll see how successful I am going to be with that. But I also, once I did wind up getting back to my TV and my, computer and my internet and stuff like that, I also did wind up downloading Pokemon Snap, and I'm still playing Animal Crossing. It's definitely more of a summer activity that I will be doing more over the summer, but I always like to have some mind-numbing games, and those are two that I just really, really enjoy. So definitely have to get around to playing them, and I'll probably start playing them again this week because now I'm off at school and I have a little bit more time on my hands. And gymnastics came back into my life. I am a big gymnastics fan. I can watch gymnastic competitions every single weekend if they existed. I just love it. And in the lead up to Tokyo, it's just been so nice to watch them again. I missed it in 2020. We had so few competitions. I think we had one before COVID shut the world down. And they really had a hard training cycle. A lot of them had a really, really hard training cycle. There were injuries, and it was hard to watch. So it's nice to see that they're back. They're going to go to Tokyo. And I know there's controversy about the Olympics, but I'm just happy that they get to fulfill their dreams. And we know who the male team is at this point. We're going to find out the female team tonight, and I'm really excited for them. And I will definitely be watching this summer because I love gymnastics. It's one of my favorite sports. I can't do it myself, but I love watching and speculating as much as everyone else. I also, with my room renovation, I did wind up scrapbooking a little bit more. I started scrapbooking my London trip from a couple of years ago, and I am planning this week to sort of switch over and do some baby scrapbooking because I had some new babies in my life, and I've been scrapbooking. My goal is to scrapbook like a couple of times a week over the summer now that I'll have a little bit more time. But it's just been so nice to have a corner of my room devoted to that. And I kind of got that idea through my Skillshare classes I've been watching. But it's been really, really nice, and I've been really enjoying it. And I've been mostly picking a movie that I haven't seen and scrapbooking as I do it. So that's kind of where the movies have popped up a little bit that I've been watching recently. And then scrapbooking, that's really been something I really have been enjoying that one. I'm hopeful I'll get to do it a little bit more this summer. And then I started doing Daily Burn again. I started a new workout. It's called the Beginner Series, and I finished that series. I also just got a new workout system that I'm going to do over the summer. And then my nonfiction read that I've been reading steadily throughout the past couple of months is How to Avoid a Climate Disaster by Bill Gates, which I think everyone should read. I think it was very, very informative, not only what we can do to help prevent climate disaster, but also what we have to do on a bigger, larger scale. And I liked it. So that's sort of my spring wrap up, both reading, entertainment, and just some fun stuff that I've been doing. Let me know what are some things that captured your attention or you enjoyed to do in the spring, and I will talk to you guys soon for my next video. Bye, friends.